And can everybody see the screen okay? All right, so I get my screens here. Okay, so if you guys can stay muted, that would be great. As we're going through, if you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat. Nick is going to be watching for me in case anybody has any questions during the presentation. Of course, there is going to be a time at the end for live question and answer. So I will let you guys know once this is available on our website. And with that, we could go ahead and get started. So again, this isn't going to be a full revamp of the system, or excuse me, of the process. We're just kind of going over some of the high level errors that I've been seeing in the system, and where I've been in communication with some of you guys via email back and forth. So just feel like it's going to be good to get it all on the same page for today's training. So we're going to go over again just activating people on the by name list, the by name list assessments, the housing offer assessments, which may be referred to as HOA, housing offer forms, which may be referred to HOF, by name list inactivation, then reactivation, and then just going over the Friday meetings. And then again at the end, just giving some time for any questions and answers. So by name list activation, you guys pretty much know when you need to be activating somebody on the list. We don't really see much issues with that in the system, but just as a review, any homeless individuals or heads of households being served by a program or an outreach provider should be activated, as well as anybody who has a housing plan using COC or other funding. However, we have the subpopulations that regardless of housing plan, they're going to be needing to be activated on the list regardless. And that's unsheltered persons and families, homeless veterans and veteran-led families, homeless young adults and young adult-led families, and then homeless families and chronically homeless persons and families. So what does that look like? It's on the profile screen in clarity at the top screen. If you're just new activating somebody, it's going to be completely blank. And when you activate somebody, this is what it will look like here down on the bottom. The by name list status, when you're activating, it's going to have two options, active ESTH or active and sheltered. Active, emergency sheltered, and transitional housing means that they're currently in a shelter or transitional housing program. And then unsheltered is they're active and currently in a place not meant for habitation. And then the by name list here down at the bottom, you're going to choose one of those subpopulations that I referred to on the prior slide to select which list they will go on. And then the by name list status change date, I wanted to put this in the training because there seems to be some confusion on what this date actually is. So this is the date on which the list status and information was collected or changed. Now, if that is unknown, you can enter today's date or whatever date that you're entering it. But if you're inactivating due to no contact for 90 plus days, you're going to want to backdate that to the 90th day of no contact so that we could keep record of that. And then just one little thing too with the by name list here, the subpopulations of a participant is not a member of any of those subpopulations listed. You don't need to select any of these. Now moving on to the by name list assessment. So I know I've mentioned this in the meetings and in some emails going forward or in the past, but for every one period of homelessness, we need one by name list assessment. So as seen in the previous screen, if you're going on the profile screen and you're just activating somebody on the by name list and filling out those 3 questions, most of the time they're going to need a new by name list assessment. However, with that being said, it's always good practice just to go into the assessments tab under the assessment history and make sure that there's not already a by name list assessment entered in for this period of homelessness. Some elements from the by name list assessment cascades from or to other assessments. So when you're updating the information there, please make sure it's accurate because that will cascade somewhere else in the system. And then I have some data elements here on the right that kind of go over what is on the by name list assessment that we've been seeing some issues with completing. So the assessment date on the top of the by name list assessment in HMIS, that's when the date is the assessment was completed in HMIS. The date identified, the question underneath the assessment date, this is the date of initial contact with a person experiencing homelessness in any program or at any point during their homeless entry. So if you're editing a by name list that has a date identified prior to your program enrollment, that could just mean that it was started from another provider during that same period of homelessness. So those why those dates are important to differentiate. And then the third thing there is the verified chronic status on the by name list assessment. Now, once we get into clarity, you'll see, but there is a warning label on there that states that only CE can verify a person's chronicity. So those that are presumed chronic, you're going to select presumed chronic and then follow the steps to notify CE that they need to check the chronicity of that participant. Excuse me. So this is what it will look like to verify chronicity. We also have this in a checklist format on our website to kind of help you guys know what needs to be done to verify chronicity. So first, you're going to ensure that the chronic PSH BNL is selected on the profile screen. Then on the by name list assessment, you're going to select the presumed chronic, as I stated on that prior slide there. Then we're going to need the homeless verification form completed, and that's what that looks like there on the right hand of the screen. And this is going to inform CE of the unsheltered non-HMIS homeless time that they're reporting. Once that's completed, we're going to need that form uploaded into the files tab on the participant's record in HMIS. And then the final step is you're going to have to send CE, that's Nikki Danette, an email notifying them that the form has been uploaded in HMIS. Then CE will go in and change that answer and the by name list assessment to verified chronic. And then they're going to add the days based on what is reported on that homeless verification form. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up Clarity and just kind of show you those steps, what it will look like from what we've discussed so far. So we're going to use our fake client today. Happy Halloween. This is the profile screen. So after you search them in the search bar, you're going to pull up their profile screen. Now, of course, if you're working with somebody who doesn't have a record in HMIS, you're going to need to create that record first and then complete the data elements on their profile screen and then go from there. But if I scroll down here at the bottom, I can see Happy Halloween has been activated on the chronic PSH by name list as of January 1st of this year. So then I'm going to go over to the assessments tab here up at the top. And I'm going to scroll down to the, yes.
Can you please zoom in for a little bit for some folks?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. Is that better? Can everybody see that better? Okay. So again, just going on the assessments tab here, I'm going to scroll down past the assessments, just under the assessment history first to see if a by name list assessment has already been created that matches or along those times of that 1/1/26 date. I can see here that one has been created on 1/5, so I do not need to create a new one. However, if this is not here, this is where you're going to go up at the top at assessments and start a new one. But again, that's only if there's not one down here in the assessment history. Okay. So to edit, you're going to click on that little edit icon there. And I could see that the assessment start date or the date that this was completed was on 1/5, even though the date identified was on 1/2. So here is the warning that I mentioned that will state that CE can only verify chronicity. So for verified chronic status, I'm going to select presumed chronic, go through the rest of the information that I have in the by name list and hit save. Then I'm going to follow the rest of the process by completing the homeless verification form, and we're going to upload that into files. So we're going to go up to files. I'm going to hit add file. And then you're just going to want to make sure that you're selecting the right category and predefined named. I also noticed this in the system that sometimes it's not looking like people are really paying attention specifically to the predefined name. I'm seeing a lot of things that just aren't making sense. So just please make sure that you're selecting the right category and predefined name. So because this is homeless verification, it should be under housing documentation. And then we have an option for homeless verification letter. So you select that file from your computer. Once you do, you would hit add record, and then it will be in the files tab. So any questions regarding any of that process so far? Okay. All right, silence is good. Moving on. So now we're going to go talking about the housing offer assessments. Now, of course, this is after the process of completing the by name list assessment and going through the slotting prioritizing process that CE puts on. So this is seen after somebody is slotted for an opportunity. So when a participant is slotted for an opportunity, 99.9% of the time, CE will start a housing offer assessment with the following data elements. That's the assessment date, the type of housing offered, the building offered if applicable, and then any offer notes that they may have put in. And that will look like here down at the bottom. A lot of times CE would put the date that they were slotted and what they were slotted for in the notes. Okay, after the slotted participant spreadsheet is released by CE, case management providers then need to go into the housing offer assessment and complete the following: the date the housing was offered, the offer outcome, and the offer date, as well as if the document ready for housing offer. I think a lot of times Danette is completing this just because she has the information, but if you know that CE received the documents and they're ready to move forward, you guys can go in and select that as well. Same with the application submitted for housing offer and date. Then the third part of that is the housing providers will go in and complete the application submitted for housing offer and date, as well as the offer interview completed and date, and housing inspection completed and date. So I also note notes can be entered by anyone. If you are entering notes, please don't delete the notes. Just enter in a new line with your blurb as seen there. So CE would put the 1/20/26 slotted for COC Lotus. And then say if I was a case manager coming in and putting in the date, the housing offer outcome and date, I might put a note in there that they accepted and the signed housing offer form has been uploaded as of this date. So that could just be an example. So just always hit enter with the date, start a new line with your note. Now I want to take a little sidetrack for YWCA staff. For those participants that you're engaging around Hitchcock Gardens as an opportunity, this will not be started by CE. So if you're engaging a participant or a guest at your shelter around Hitchcock Gardens as an opportunity and they decline, you're going to have to do all of this process yourself. You have to enter in the housing offer assessment with the date that you offered them, the type, which would be Hitchcock Gardens, and any notes in there. And if they accept it, you would have to complete the following steps too as well. Does that make sense there? So anything Hitchcock Gardens related will not come from CE. So I just wanted to put that note. Just also another side note, always make sure that you check the housing offer assessment is under the assessment history before you create another one. So again, just checking the slotted spreadsheet that's sent out from CE, going in and checking that the housing offer assessment is already put in for that date. So again, just being vigilant so that we're not duplicating processes. Accepting and denying offers. So an accepted offer, if somebody accepts the offer, that's when you move on to the housing application and gathering the documents that are required for that process. Denied offer, participant will maintain the spot on their list until they deny 3 consecutive viable offers. I believe that's only happened to one person, and now that went away, I believe, on December 26th. So they won't be eligible for another 6 months, for another opportunity for 6 months. But after that 6 months comes up, they'll get back on the list and can be available for other opportunities. Housing providers that reject the participant or missed application deadlines do not count as a denied offer. So again, this is important because we track those housing offer assessments of who is declining and who's accepting. If they are declining, we're tracking to see how many they've declined consecutively. And if they do, we have to notify CE. So that's why it's important to make sure that you are identifying the acceptable outcome so that it doesn't fall badly on the participant. Okay. So I'm going to move over again to clarity and just show you what that would look like. So again, we're under Happy Halloween. I'm going to the assessments tab at the top. I'm going to scroll down to the assessment history, and I see that they have a housing offer assessment for 120. I'm going to go in and edit that. And these are the things that we need completed. The date of the housing offer. So this is when you initially had the conversation with your participant, asking them, hey, you've been slotted for this opportunity. What do you want to do? You want to accept or deny? So that would be the date that you had that conversation. I'm going to say that we had that conversation on the same date because I want to get started on the application process if they accepted. So we're going to say Happy Halloween accepted, and they accepted it on the same date. So now I'm going to move forward and work on their housing application and that process. Once I know that I got everything squared away, I notified CE that it has been uploaded, that the application has been uploaded. I'm going to hit document ready for housing offer and application submitted. Then this would be great practice if we can all start doing this so that we can match what's on the housing offer form to what's on the assessment, that what date you uploaded the signed housing form. Because then once I'm tracking this in the system, I can see that there's a note in here that the signed housing form has been uploaded as of this date. So once I hit save, and I'll go into the files tab and see if there was a form submitted on that date or uploaded, excuse me. Any questions there?
Amanda,
Yes.
where is the application uploaded here?
The application?
Yeah, the housing. If you submit the application, is that uploaded in this file or no?
The application, once you finish, will be under the files tab. So
Put it in the files. Okay.
Yeah. So say you completed that assessment saying that the participant accepted the offer, you worked towards getting the documents ready, you got the application completed, you notified CE that it's uploaded. You're going to go to the files tab, again, hit add file. You're going to make sure that you have the same right categories. So housing documentation, and I believe there is, a PSH application. So you'll just choose those two, select the file from your computer and hit add record. So once you do that, then that's when you put it in assessment that it's been uploaded and ready.
Gotcha. All right. And what about the any other documents that you're uploading? Does
Same
everything
thing.
go with that? Okay.
Yep, everything will go under the files tab for these processes. You just want to make sure, depending on what you're uploading, you have the right category and predefined name. But everything will go under the files tab. Yep, you got it.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
Amanda, I have a question.
Yes.
So if I have, like, let's say there's an existing client who, and I'm sorry, I'm like, I have like a horrible cold, so I'm a little raspy. But let's say I have like a existing client who has a housing offer form already uploaded in HMIS. And so let's say they leave shelter, they come back. So I would have to like do another housing offer form, of course, right? Like let's say it's like within um it's before like that 90-day or 30-day mark.
So, not necessarily, I'm just making sure that I understand you right. So you went through, they were slotted for an opportunity, they had the housing offer assessment completed, and you had the signed housing offer form uploaded into the system, but then they
Yes.
leave shelter completely.
Yes.
And then the deadline has surpassed and that opportunity is no longer viable because the deadline has passed. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, correct.
If that's the case, you're going to want to go back into that assessment, that housing offer assessment that they originally stated that they accepted. So I'm going to go into the housing offer assessment. And even though they told me they accepted on 120, now the application deadline has passed. So I'm going to put denied application deadline pass, and I'm going to change the date to as of today, because, or we'll just say that the deadline is today. You would put the deadline, whatever the last day of that 2-week period that CE uses for that time frame. And you would just do that. You won't need to upload a new one if they come back. That's only if they get slotted again for another opportunity. Because after that 2-week span, that opportunity is no longer viable. And if they miss shelter, they miss that opportunity. They would have to wait till they get slotted again. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome. I hope you feel better. There's some nasty stuff going on.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions regarding housing offer assessments, housing offer forms? Or excuse me, the assessments. I don't think I've gotten to the forms yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Now we're getting into the forms. So again, this is a two-part process. It kind of goes hand in hand with the housing offer assessments. But when is a housing offer form needed? There's 2 times where we need a signed housing offer form. Is if on the housing offer assessment, the offer outcome is accepted, or the offer outcome is denied, client rejected. We do not need a signed housing form if the offer outcome is denied, provider rejected, denied, the application deadline missed, or they were missing left shelter. Because of those outcomes, we do not need a signed housing offer form because they are a lot of times out of the participant's control. So again, only need it when they accept it or the client denies it. So when you're completing a housing offer form, these are all the data elements that are on that form. We need to know the participant name, the agency that is offering the housing, staff name that is offering the housing to the participant, type of housing offered, and name of PSH building offered if applicable. These are important because when I'm going through the system, these are the 2 main things that I'm checking match the housing offer assessment to make sure that they are corresponding to the same opportunity. Since we've been in this process for 14 months, we have a lot of participants who had a lot of opportunities given to them. So we need to make sure that the data is just matching to make sure that we can correspond with the same assessment. Now, on the housing offer form, we also need to know whether the participant has accepted or denied. If they denied it, please state a reason for why they've declined the offer. And then we need the staff signature as well as the participant signature. Now, I know sometimes the participant may refuse to sign or they may not be available to sign. If that is the case, just note that with the date on the participant signature line. With that said, though, we should see very minimal of these, and every effort to obtain a participant signature should be attempted, because this is really what's telling us that the accepted or denied offer really came from the participant. I know I've been working with you guys the last couple of weeks, and a lot of the recent communications I sent out with the corrections that are needed were from probably since like from back when we started the process. So a lot of these participants may not be available in your shelters now. So that is okay while we're trying to clean up the system, but please keep that to minimal. And as I said before, every effort to obtain the signature should be attempted. And as I said, just please make sure that when you're filling out that housing offer form, that the data matches the housing offer assessment. Because like I said, we're just trying to match that they go together for one opportunity. And again, once that has been completed, upload that under the files tab as I showed you previously. And then you can also put that in the notes on the housing offer assessment. Housing offer form uploaded as of 1/22/26. So just explaining how to upload housing offer forms. I'm going to go in Clarity and show you that. So we're going back to the Files tab, add a file. And I just want to show you guys here. A lot of times when I'm seeing these are being uploaded, I see that you guys are selecting housing documentation and then you're just uploading the file. I see a lot of the housing offer forms being labeled as a Home for Every Neighbor program agreement. This is causing some confusion because then I get calls from other end users who are working with this participant or, a Home for Every Neighbor end users in the system asking why they have this document when they're not part of the program. So again, just be vigilant when you're selecting these categories. It's important because since this is a collaboration effort, there's going to be multiple end users working with a participant. So to avoid any more confusions, please make sure you're selecting the right category and predefined name. So since this is a housing offer form, we do have that listed as a predefined category. Again, just select the file from your computer and hit add record. Any questions with those processes? Okay. Moving right along. So by name list and activation. I've seen some confusion around when to inactivate a participant from the list, so we can go over that together. When do you inactivate somebody from the list? Once a participant has been either permanently housed or non-permanently housed. You go on the profile screen, select those options, and then the by name list status change date should be as of the housing move-in date. So if they are permanently housed, you would deactivate them as in their housing move-in date. Non-permanently housed, again, if you're not sure of a move-in date, you could use today's date to enter as the status change date. Now, if a person has been missing or no contact has been made for 90 days, you can also inactivate that. Again, the by name list status change date should be made backdated to the 90th day of no contact that you know. Now, again, just because somebody may have discharged from your program doesn't ultimately mean that they need to be deactivated from the list. Again, we're working in that one period of homelessness, and as long as that's not interrupted for 90 days, that's considered one period of homelessness. So if somebody discharges from your project to either a hospital or a jail, but then is re-enrolled into your project or another homeless project 30 days later, this does not mean that they're entering a new period of homelessness so they can remain on the list. They do not need to be deactivated because that's why we need to wait to see if somebody would re-engage in the homeless system. Now, if a participant discharges from your program to a hospital or jail and it's longer than 90 days, then you can deactivate them from the list. Is there any questions regarding that time frame or the time period that we're looking at? Period of homelessness is 90 days uninterrupted. So it'll pretty much be the same process that you go when you're activating. You're going to go to the profile screen for the by name list. You don't need to unselect anything because once you change the status, that question will go away. and then you will just click Save Changes. So back to our Happy Halloween. If I go to their profile screen, let's say that they moved into the Lotus that they were slotted for in our example there. I'm going to say that they are inactive because they are permanently housed and they have a move-in date as of, we'll just say today, for example. And you hit Save Changes. Now this will deactivate them from the list and they will no longer populate on the report that CE uses when slotting. So when do you reactivate somebody on the list? So if somebody who is missing re-engages after that 90 days and seeks COC housing resources, they will need to be reactivated on the list. If somebody was removed from the list due to being housed, but ultimately loses their housing and return to homelessness, they will be reactivated on the list. If a participant is re-identified as one of the subpopulations that we have talked about and that is listed below, the participating agency should also reactivate them on the list. And again, that's unsheltered, veterans, young adults, homeless families, and chronically homeless persons and families. Okay, now we're getting into Friday housing meetings. And this is usually the 1 o'clock Friday meeting that we do case conferencing with, where CE will go over the by name list report that they pull, go over housing plans, things like that. While they're going through asking for updated housing plans or to update a disabling condition on the by name list assessment, that means that there's already a by name list assessment in the system because it's populating on the report. Therefore, when CE is asking for that to be updated, you do not need to enter a new one. I think this is where we're seeing a lot of the duplication happening is CE directs you guys that something needs to be updated. You're thinking to go in and just create a whole new one. That causes a lot of duplication. So if CE says in the Friday meetings that please update the housing plan, please identify a building or update the disabling condition, or please update your contact information on the by name list, that's when you're going to want to go to the assessments tabs, scroll down under the assessment history and edit the by name list assessment that's already in there. And then CE will kind of go through the meeting and determine who will probably need to be deactivated or ask if anybody has been housed since the last meeting. It's also, if you guys can, during that meeting, have clarity up. I've done it a couple of times, and if somebody states, like Eden, for example, states that one of your participant has been housed as of this date, you could go in right there on the meeting and deactivate them from there. So that's kind of like a good use for the Friday meetings as we're kind of going over the list, over anything that might need to be updated, or if anybody needs to be deactivated. If you could have clarity open during that meeting, that'd be great. Even though I know sometimes you guys are out in the field and whatnot. So that's why I try to help out too in those meetings when I can to deactivate people from the list. And with that, that was all of the really main concerns that I was noticing in the system that I just wanted to review with you guys today. Any questions?
Yes, Amanda. So I have another question.
Yep.
So I just want to be clear. The only time I'm like creating a new BNL is like let's just say, for example, if a guest of ours has been like missing for like 90 plus days and they come back into shelter, is that when I will do a new BNL?
Yes, or they haven't been, you would want to check their HMIS history to also make sure that they haven't had any other type of enrollment in the last
Okay.
90 days. And then, yes, you would need to activate them on the list and then start a new by name list assessment.
Okay. All right.
Amanda,
Yes.
it's Vita.
Hi, Vita.
Hi, I'm gonna cut my camera on because I'm being nice. I look like something today. So this is a lot of information, and considering we're on the data side of things and there's the housing side. So, okay. They do a lot of assessments. We do a lot of closing, and our population is very in and out. So there is a lot that happens for Norma Her.
Mhm.
And so I want to be clear. People come in and we do activate them on the by name list status on the front profile screen at the bottom, putting them in and making them active.
Okay.
However, I do, when we close on the back end side, I do not touch them on that by name list. I leave them active there because they come in and out so often.
Yes, yes.
Now, when we go in to close them, especially I was just reviewing that part where you said when they move into PSH and you make them inactive on that by name list on that profile. Can you go back to that?
Sure.
Because I'm visual and because I want to be clear now that we have you here. If you
Mhm.
scroll down at the bottom where you're making them inactive down there
Yep.
and permanently housed.
Mhm.
Okay, when you go under the history and you're reading that, are we doing that from our standpoint? We would need to be doing that, or is that something the housing people would do?
Great question. This is where it becomes like a collaborative effect. If you're working in the record, Vita, and you know that they, like, you exited them on their own rental with ongoing subsidy, or that, wherever they're exiting to permanent house, if you're exiting them and you know that their housing move-in date, you could go in and deactivate them as inactive permanently housed as of that date. A lot of times, so only the housing providers might have that information. So that's
Yeah.
where we ask the housing providers to do it. So this is where it becomes like a collaborative effort. So if you know it, we just ask that you do it just so that it gets done. But again, if you don't have that information, we don't want you to put in anything that's wrong.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, a lot of the times those Friday meetings are really good with those. And I don't think that you go to
No,
those
I'm not.
meetings. Yeah.
No.
So
And I don't want a piano. No.
yeah. Okay. Well, that's where, like, if CE is going through and asking if this person's been housed and if it's a normal hair participant, and if somebody is on that meeting and they're in clarity, they could go ahead and deactivate them. I've done that too myself. I believe Eden has done that. So if you know the information, we just ask that you do it.
And when you're saying that, I'm not saying necessarily the housing navigators, because sometimes the move-in date, I know that's been an issue with the actual housing people like at the PSH. I know that's been an issue a long time. So the move-in dates are not as clear. So that's why I'm asking this question, because I'm going back to, I've been out of the housing realm for a long time. So I want to make sure that I'm clear, the housing navigators are clear. So we all are making this happen as seamless as possible. So if if a navigator knows that someone's moving into PSH on, let's say tomorrow's the 23rd,
Yeah.
the paperwork should be completed for the 23rd at that PSH. Am I correct?
Yes, yeah. So if they know that they're going to be moving in on the 23rd, go ahead and deactivate them, even if it's a day early.
Okay.
I think that's
what I
fine.
wondered.
Yeah,
Okay.
because then we could go in and see, for data entry purposes, if we see that they're deactivated in their house because they were slotted for, let's say, the Lotus again, I could see, okay, well, they don't have a data or a program enrollment in HMIS. That could kind of help the conversation too, because sometimes Eden gets delayed with entering that in the system.
Okay.
So I understand that as well. So
Okay, that's what I wanted to clear up, because I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to deactivate and dates are like, troublesome. That was my
yeah,
question. Okay.
gotcha.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
Yeah, if you know it, yeah, go ahead and do it, even if it's a day early. But yeah, if you know it,
So
please
that
go ahead
doesn't
and do it.
matter that it may be a day early. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah, no problem. Appreciate
you.
the question. Yep.
Hey, Amanda, can you drop that, where it says inactive permanently housed? Can you click on that arrow?
Yep.
So where it says active unsheltered.
So this is not going to probably pertain to you guys, since you guys are
Okay.
just the shelter. Anytime that's you guys are working with somebody, if they're coming into Norma Hair or 2100, they're active in a shelter. So you'll do active ESTH, excuse me.
And then if we can't locate the person after the 90 days, so do we put it under that unknown missing?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. You would do
Okay.
inactive, unknown, missing as of the 90th day.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So yeah, so if they exited from Norma Hair on today's date, 90 days go by, they haven't re-engaged at Norma Hair, they haven't entered any other shelter, you could go in on that 90th day and deactivate them.
Here's my question to that though,
So
Tracy. I
that,
don't want to start confusing. I never go back in and mess with that after the 90
was-
days. If they come back, I have left that alone. And Nick, I think I sent you an email about that.
okay.
Yeah, because I remember I said I don't want to confuse anything. I
And it's
think I
kind of
sent you
hard
all
to
the
keep
email.
up with that.
Yeah, we don't go back
Okay.
in.
This is,
Okay.
yeah, this is why I brought up the Friday meetings in this refresher training, because a lot of times it's, Nikki goes over that. They're saying she'll note them like, okay, it's coming up
Okay.
to about 90 days. Has anybody seen this person? And we'll just keep track of it in those meetings. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I was just thinking too, what about the people that some people leave under reunification. So I guess that don't go anywhere in here.
Yeah, no, that's why we would just,
Okay.
like Vita said, just wait after they discharge, because a lot of times, like you guys said, your guests come back after a few days
Yeah.
or they present at a different shelter within that 90 days, so they can still stay active on the list.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Yep. Good questions.
Yeah, I think this is just a general point that I think it's probably okay. It's actually better probably to have more people active than we don't want to be removing people prematurely ever, right? Because they can miss their housing opportunities. So if you don't know the information when somebody leaves, it's fine to leave them active, and we will eventually catch it because they won't be, we'll keep hearing they're not here, they're not here, they're not here, and then eventually we'll be able to deactivate them. I think the most important takeaways that Amanda went over today is not really about when to activate and inactivate. It's really the housing information, right? When are people being offered their housing? We need that stuff filled out, and we need those forms filled out correctly. Inactivating and deactivating are simple, right? We can do that. We can make that work. But those forms being filled out, the housing offer assessments, the by name list assessment being filled out so that we know where to slot people. That's
So
really the takeaways here.
okay, so I agree with that, but I have another question. I seen like 6 people the other day, and my initial with them was to do the housing offer form. And when they did the housing offer form, those that accepted it, I immediately uploaded it.
Mhm.
Was that right?
So
I immediately
were
uploaded
they
it to
slotted?
HMIS.
Were they
Were they
slotted for
slot?
a housing opportunity?
Mm-mm.
So then no.
So wait until they're slotted,
Yes.
and then put the offer form in. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we
Okay.
need the information on that housing offer form, Tracy. It matches the data that corresponds to what opportunity they were slotted for.
I
So if they
got
weren't
it.
slotted for something, they don't need a form, only when they've been
Okay.
slotted.
Yeah.
Unless you're working with somebody for Hitchcock Gardens. That's
Okay.
the side note.
That's different. Yeah.
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 So
And
what
then
if
so the
I
only time, go ahead.
ask them, hey, if you're offered PSH down the line, if you're slotted, would you be interested? And they tell me yes, and they check accepted and sign it. Can I file that away until they're slotted for a PSH unit? That way I already have the housing offer form.
I think what you're referring to, or what I would do first, right? When you first meet with somebody is update the by name list assessment. The by name list
That-
assessment is where you keep track of what are they interested in, right? What
Right.
opportunities do they want? What housing track should we put them on, right? So they're saying, yeah, we want PSH. Yeah, we want
Right.
this building, this building, this building, and hey, we'll take scattered site too, whatever, right? So
And
you
I
would
put
mark
that
that on the
in.
by name list assessment. The
Right.
housing offer form comes when they actually have a legitimate offer because we
Okay.
have
So
a
I won't
slot
mess
open
with
for
it.
them.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't do those early because the dates are going to matter, what building they're offered matters, and thinking about having them sign and date something and then go back and modify it. We run into some,
Oh no, I don't do that.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
do, but I do have PSH applications done. They just don't date them
Yeah.
until they're slotted. So
Yeah, and you know what, that's been like a long standing sort of practice, and that's fine. Um,
okay.
but we're gonna be doing, we're getting the USHAP going, right, which is gonna be in the in HMIS. And so it'll be probably even easier to do something like that. You can fill all that out. You don't have to date anything yet, right?
Right.
So we'll probably follow something similar to that. But that offer assessment really is to see if they've accepted that offer or denied that specific offer.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
These are good questions, everyone. So thank you. Anybody else have any other questions or concerns? Or want to go over anything else? We got a few more minutes.
If you don't mind, I have another question. It's about the let me see. I'm still trying to like learn all the paperwork here, but like the homeless verification dates. Can you go over that, please?
Sure. Let me see if let me pull back up the slide. Also, while I'm pulling this up, everything that we went over today, all of the forms, processes, they are available on our website. And we can provide the link to for you guys. Those are always resources available to you. If you guys ever just need like a quick question that you want to try and find on our website. But okay, here is the homeless verification form. I apologize, I know it's a little small, but up at the top here, we have the client's name, date of birth, case manager name, and agency. Does your agency have access to HMIS? If yes, they're asking to attach the HMIS printout. That's their HMIS history. Date of last coordinated intake. If they need coordinated intake, and then they're asking to document the current homeless episodes and then proceed in chronological order. I know CE has gone over that this form needs to be as detailed as possible with addresses. They can't just say like a park off of some type of road. They need as most accurate as information as possible when you're filling this out. So the date, location, and the number of days. And then this is what's going to be needed to be uploaded. Once it's uploaded, you can send an email to CE and let them know that it's uploaded. Now, I'm sure they've mentioned this in the Friday meetings that if any corrections need to be made, they'll reach out to you. But that's why it's kind of important to be as detailed as possible from the beginning, because going back and forth like that can take up some time in the application process. So as long as this form is as detailed as possible with addresses and dates, then that's what they're looking for. Was there any specific question that, oh, sorry, Nick.
No, you're okay. I just want to clarify too that this form is meant to capture non-HMIS days. I know it says it here, but that's the real important piece of this. So when we look at chronic homelessness, all right, the days that we capture in HMIS and homeless programs are already there, right? We don't need you to fill this out, okay, and have those dates included. This is really just to capture any dates that are not in HMIS. So it's going to take some time to sort of look at the HMIS record and then line up those other periods of homelessness, unsheltered time, outside of the county shelters, anything that would fit homelessness, right? And line that up with what's in HMIS, and those are what you put on that form. So I think I think a lot of us have gotten in the habit of doing that now, but that was not the case, right? Prior, we used to fill this out with everything on it. But this is really to document non-HMIS days.
That clarifies it. That makes it, understandable. The way you just put that. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nick, quick question. So our youth shelter, it's my understanding that adult providers can't see what's in that system, correct? So if they turn 18, would that data show up in the adult file?
So yeah, eventually, so if you are the ones who create that record, it is private. in the sense that if they were to try to search that person, they would not see them. And what usually happens is they create a duplicate, and then we get the duplicate that way. And then when we merge the records, it becomes public. Um,
Okay.
so yes, it might take some time, but we should. I haven't run into any. I haven't run into any participants yet where your information was not included. And again, because it's an HMIS, it still counts. So on the by name list,
Right,
you can see the days just added up. It doesn't say where, right?
right, right.
So we are accounting for your days still.
Okay.
But I think in the terms of this form, it could be a little confusing because somebody could say, well, I was in this youth shelter from this time to this time, and then you might fill it out because you can't see it. Not you, Lisa, but anybody,
No,
right?
no, gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, but at least they'll be able to line it up because CE will be able to see a lot of that.
To see it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little bit confusing because if Vita had said earlier, we have, our guests are so transient. They come in and they go out. And so I guess that's where I was getting a little bit confused, what date to put, like how many days they were away from the shelter. So if you can kind of clarify that, if I'm making any sense at all,
Yeah.
let's just say we have a guest that, they left, they came back in 2 weeks, then they were gone, left shelter again, came back in 30 days. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I know that it's a challenge, and that is something that you have to account for. So we are going to just sort of giving you a heads up where we're headed. We are trying to get all of those unsheltered days, right, in HMIS via the outreach module. But that would require someone to find them outside and be able to track that, right? So I mean, there's going to be gaps, but I know it stinks, and I know that this is like an administrative burden, and this is just it's the nature of the beast. We have to document the homelessness in order to get them the housing. So yes, if they leave for 30 days and you don't, they tell you that they're outside, you got to sort of keep track, 2 week period, 3 week period, you got to track them all on this form. So if it ends up being a ton of, more than 6 lines, you just sort of get a new one or turn it over, right? And write again, because we got to account for everything. And
Thank you.
that's a HUD thing. I always blame HUD, because if it was up to me, I would take everybody's word for it and get them what the housing they needed, right? I think we all would. But
Mhm.
we have to follow the rules. Definitely don't want our housing providers to get in trouble because they don't have the proper documentation of homelessness.
Somebody else have a question? I feel like I heard somebody try to come off mute. No? All right. Well, I just want to say again, thank you everyone for being here today. I appreciate your time. Great questions and good discussion. So I will send out an email once this is available, the recording on our website. Nick also put the link in the chat for other resources regarding this process. So thank you there, Nick. And then again, as always, if you guys are ever in the system and you have a question, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available for technical support. All right, I'll give you guys back 4 minutes of your morning. Take
Thanks,
care,
everyone.
everyone.
On
Thanks,
accept,
man.
no clothes or shoes.
Bye-bye.
Blessed day, everyone.
Thank you. Be well. Stay warm.
You too. Take
Great.
care.
Yeah, great training. Thank you.